What's the worst thing a best friend has ever done to you? I've spent the last 3 years rebuilding my life after discovering my husband and best friend were having an affair for nearly our entire 7-year marriage. But that wasn't even the worst of it. 2 weeks ago, I found out she'd been secretly recording our most intimate conversations for years and sending the recordings to my ex-husband and his lawyer during our divorce. She admitted she'd been feeding him information since before we even got married. The woman who held my hand at my father's funeral, who was the maid of honor at my wedding, who I trusted with every secret I've ever had, was never actually my friend at all. She was his spy. I guess I should start at the beginning. Megan and I met during our first week of college orientation back in 2008. We both showed up to the wrong classroom building for our campus tour and ended up getting completely lost together. Spending an hour trying to find our way back to the student center while laughing about how hopeless our sense of direction was created an instant bond. We were both away from home for the first time, both English majors, and both a little awkward in large groups. It seemed like destiny that we'd become friends. We became inseparable almost immediately. We got an apartment together sophomore year and stayed roommates until graduation. We were there for each other through everything: terrible breakups, family drama, academic stress, you name it. When my dad was diagnosed with cancer during our senior year, she was the one who drove me home at 2 a.m. when I got the call and sat with me in the hospital for days. When her mom remarried a guy she couldn't stand, I was the one who helped her navigate all those complicated feelings. After college, we both got jobs in Boston and continued living together. Our career paths diverged. I went into publishing, she went into marketing, but our friendship remained rock solid. Or so I thought. I met Jason at a friend's house party in 2012. He was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in my work, which was a refreshing change from the dates I'd been on recently. He was already established in his career as an investment banker, 4 years older than me, and seemed so put together compared to guys my age. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, I was thrilled. From our first date, it was like a whirlwind. He was attentive, romantic, and made me feel like the center of his universe. After 6 months of dating, he proposed during a weekend trip to Cape Cod. I was ecstatic, and of course, Megan was the first person I called. "Oh my God, Kate, I'm so happy for you." She had squealed over the phone. I knew he was going to do it this weekend. I could tell he was nervous when he came by to pick you up. I asked Megan to be my maid of honor without hesitation. She threw me the most thoughtful bridal shower, organized an amazing bachelorette weekend, and was by my side through all the wedding planning stress. During her maid of honor speech, she told everyone that she'd known Jason was the one for me from the moment she met him. "They just fit together perfectly," she said, raising her glass. "I've never seen Kate happier, and as her best friend, that's all I've ever wanted." The wedding was perfect. I remember looking around at the reception, seeing Jason chatting with my college friends, Megan dancing with my cousins, and feeling like my heart might burst from happiness. I had the man of my dreams and my best friend by my side. What more could I want? The first few years of marriage were good. Not perfect, what marriage is, but good. Jason worked long hours and traveled frequently for his job, which I understood. When my dad's cancer returned in 2014, Jason was supportive but often had to be away for work. It was Megan who came with me to most of his appointments and stayed with me the night he passed. "I'm so sorry Jason couldn't be here," she had said, holding my hand at the funeral. "But I'm here. I'll always be here." After my dad died, I fell into a depression. Jason suggested I take some time off work, which I did. During those months, Megan would come over while Jason was at work, bringing me coffee and forcing me to take walks around the neighborhood. She'd tell me funny stories about her dating disasters to cheer me up. In hindsight, I realized she never had a relationship that lasted more than a few months, always finding some reason why the guy wasn't right for her. By 2016, things with Jason had started to feel different. He was even busier at work, often not coming home until after I was asleep and leaving before I woke up. When I brought it up, he'd tell me about the big clients he was handling and how important this phase of his career was. "It won't be like this forever," he'd promise. "Just a couple more years and I'll be able to cut back." I believed him. I supported him. I was the understanding wife who didn't complain when he missed dinner plans or canceled weekend trips at the last minute. Whenever I felt lonely or frustrated, I call Megan. She'd always made time for me, even with her own busy schedule. He's just focused on building your future, she'd reassure me. Jason loves you so much, Kate. He talks about you all the time when I run into him. I never questioned why she was running into my husband so frequently. Looking back, there were so many warning signs I missed. By late 2018, our marriage was really struggling. We barely saw each other, and when we did, conversations felt forced. I suggested couples therapy, but Jason always had an excuse for why we couldn't start yet. I confided everything to Megan, all my fears about my marriage failing, my insecurities about whether Jason still found me attractive, even my private thoughts about whether I should leave him. You guys are just going through a rough patch, she'd tell me. All marriages do. Don't give up yet. Then came January 2019. Jason was supposedly on a business trip to Chicago. I was home alone on a Friday night when my laptop died, and I realized I'd left my charger at the office. I remembered Jason had a spare one in his home office, so I went to look for it. While searching through his desk drawer, I found a hotel receipt. Not from Chicago, but from a hotel downtown, just 15 minutes from our house, dated 2 days earlier when he was supposedly out of town. My stomach dropped. With shaking hands, I turned on his desktop computer. It wasn't password protected, why would it be? We trusted each other completely. Or at least, I trusted him. I don't know what made me check his email. I'd never snooped on Jason before. But something felt off, and I needed to know. In his sent folder, I found dozens of emails to Megan. Not friendly, casual emails between my husband and best friend. Intimate emails. Emails that made it clear they'd been sleeping together for years. The room started spinning. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I printed out a handful of emails and then just sat there, staring at the wall, for hours. The next morning, I called my brother and asked if I could stay with him for a few days. I packed a bag and left before Jason was due to return from his business trip. I didn't tell him or Megan where I was going. For 3 days, I ignored their calls and texts. Both of them were frantically trying to reach me, their messages becoming increasingly concerned. On the 4th day, I texted Jason, "I know about you and Megan. Don't come looking for me." Within minutes, he called. I let it go to voicemail. Then Megan called. Then Jason again. This continued all day. Finally, I blocked both their numbers. A week later, I returned to our house when I knew Jason would be at work. I packed more of my things and left a letter telling him I wanted a divorce. I also left printed copies of some of the emails I'd found. That night, both Jason and Megan showed up at my brother's apartment. How they knew I was there, I still don't know. My brother refused to let them in, but I could hear them through the door, begging me to talk to them. I stayed hidden in the bedroom, sobbing quietly while my brother stood guard. The next day, I got an email from Jason. "Please let me explain," he wrote. "It's not what you think. Megan means nothing to me. It was a mistake that happened a few times when we were both lonely. It's been over for months. I love you, Kate. Please come home." A mistake that happened a few times? The emails I found spanned years. Some dated back to before our wedding. They'd been carrying on behind my back for almost the entirety of my relationship with Jason. Megan's email came an hour later. "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from right now," she wrote. "What I did is unforgivable. But please know that Jason and I ended things last year. We both realized how wrong it was. I've been trying to make it up to you by helping your marriage get back on track. I know that sounds insane, but it's true. I love you, Kate. You're my best friend. Please give me a chance to explain in person." I didn't respond to either of them. Instead, I contacted a divorce attorney. The divorce process was ugly. Jason fought me on everything, from the division of assets to ownership of gifts my father had given us before he died. He hired an expensive lawyer who seemed to know exactly what arguments I was planning to make before I made them. Somehow, they always seemed to be one step ahead of me. I stayed with my brother for 2 months before finding my own apartment. During that time, both Jason and Megan continued their campaigns to get me to talk to them. Jason sent flowers to my work with apology notes. Megan left tearful voicemails on my work phone since I'd blocked her on my personal cell. I ignored all of it. Our mutual friends were torn. Some cut ties with both Jason and Megan immediately. Others urged me to at least hear their side of the story. A few, mainly Jason's friends who had become our couple friends, seemed to think I was overreacting. Affairs happen, one of them actually said to me. It doesn't mean your whole marriage was a lie. But it did. It absolutely did. By the end of 2019, the divorce was finalized. Jason got to keep our house, which I'd never wanted to return to anyway, and I got a financial settlement that was less than I deserved but enough to start over. I gradually rebuilt my support network, reconnecting with old friends I'd lost touch with and making new ones through work and a support group for people who'd been through similar betrayals. The hardest part wasn't losing Jason. By the time I discovered the affair, our marriage had already deteriorated so much that ending it felt like a relief in some ways. No, the hardest part was losing Megan. For all those years, she had been my constant, my person, my confidant, the one I trusted most in the world. Discovering that she had been betraying me the entire time made me question every friendship, every relationship, every moment of connection I'd ever experienced. If Megan could fake being my friend for over a decade, how could I ever trust anyone again? I spent all of 2020 in therapy, working through these trust issues. My therapist helped me see that what Jason and Megan did wasn't a reflection of me or my judgment, it was a reflection of their own moral failings. Slowly, I started to open up again, to let new people into my life, though never with the same unguarded trust I once had. Both Jason and Megan eventually stopped trying to contact me. I heard through mutual friends that they had briefly tried dating openly after our divorce but had broken up within months. Apparently, their relationship wasn't so appealing when it wasn't forbidden. I was finally starting to feel like I was moving on. I'd been promoted at work, had started dating again, cautiously, and was considering buying my own place instead of renting. I truly believed the worst was behind me. Then, 2 weeks ago, I ran into Megan at a coffee shop. I almost didn't recognize her at first. Her hair was different, shorter, darker, and she'd lost weight. But then she looked up from her laptop and our eyes met, and for a moment, we both froze. I should have walked out immediately. That would have been the smart thing to do. But something kept me rooted to the spot. Maybe it was shock, or maybe some part of me still wanted answers. "Kate," she said, standing up. "Oh my God, Kate. I need to go," I finally managed to say, turning toward the door. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes, and I'll leave you alone forever if that's what you want." I don't know why I agreed. But I found myself sitting across from her, clutching my coffee cup so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Thank you," she said, wiping at her eyes. "I've practiced what I would say to you so many times, and now I can't remember any of it." "Just say what you need to say so I can leave," I replied. She took a deep breath. "I know sorry doesn't even begin to cover it. What I did to you was unforgivable. Not just the affair, but the betrayal of your friendship. You were the most important person in my life, and I ruined everything. If I was so important, why did you do it?" I asked, the question that had haunted me for years finally escaping my lips. Megan stared down at her hands. I wish I had a reason that would make sense to anyone with a conscience. "The truth is, I met Jason before you did." This caught me off guard. "What?" "We hooked up a few times after meeting at a bar. It wasn't serious. Then he met you at that party, the one thrown by Eric, remember? When you told me about this great guy you'd met named Jason, I realized it was the same person. I should have told you right then, but I didn't. I felt sick. So the whole time I was falling for him. I was already sleeping with him, yes," she admitted. "At first, I told myself it would fizzle out between you two. When it didn't, I should have backed off. But by then, Jason and I had this secret, and secrets can be intoxicating." "Intoxicating," I repeated, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. "That's how you describe betraying your best friend for years?" "I'm not trying to justify it," she said quickly. "There's no justification. I was selfish and awful and the worst friend anyone could have. Did you ever actually care about me at all?" I asked, hating how my voice shook. "Or was our entire friendship just a way for you to stay close to Jason?" Megan's face crumpled. "That's the most twisted part, Kate. I did love you. You were my best friend. I meant every moment of our friendship while simultaneously betraying you in the worst way. I lived with that cognitive dissonance for years. We sat in silence for a moment. There's something else you should know, she finally said. Something I've never told anyone. I braced myself, not sure I could handle any more revelations. Jason asked me to spy on you, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. From the beginning, even before you were married. He wanted me to tell him things you said about him, about your relationship. And I did. My mind raced back through the years, through all the intimate conversations Megan and I had shared. All the times I'd confided my doubts, my fears, my deepest thoughts about my relationship. And during the divorce, she continued, I gave his lawyer information. Things you told me about your strategy, about what assets you wanted most. You what? The betrayal felt fresh all over again, a new wound on top of the old scar. How would you even know my strategy? We weren't speaking during the divorce. Megan looked up at me, her face pale. I had recordings. Recordings? Of what? Of our conversations. For years. The coffee shop suddenly seemed too loud, too bright. You recorded our private conversations? Without my knowledge? She nodded, tears streaming down her face now. Jason asked me to, early in your relationship. He said it was just so he could get to know you better, understand what you really wanted. I told myself it was romantic, that he just wanted to be the perfect boyfriend. And you kept doing it? For years? Even after my dad died? My voice broke on the last words as I remembered all the raw, vulnerable conversations we'd had during that time. Yes, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Kate. I know there's no coming back from this. Why are you telling me this now? I demanded. Why not let me go on with my life thinking I at least knew the extent of your betrayal? Because I'm in therapy now, she said. Real therapy, not the kind where you go just to say you're working on yourself. And my therapist has helped me see that keeping secrets, even if revealing them might hurt someone more, is just another form of selfishness. You deserve to know the whole truth, even if it means you hate me even more. I don't hate you, Megan, I said, surprising myself with the realization as I spoke. Hate requires emotional investment. You're nothing to me now. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. What did you record? And how? I asked, needing to understand the scope of this new violation. I used my phone mostly. Sometimes a small recorder in my purse. Later, there was an app that would record automatically at certain times. She couldn't meet my eyes. As for what? Everything. Our girls' nights, our coffee dates, the times you came to me crying about Jason working too much. When I told you I was thinking about leaving him. When I confided that I was worried our marriage was beyond saving. She nodded. I sent those recordings to Jason. He'd listen and then adjust his behavior just enough to keep you from leaving. It was all manipulation, Kate. The times he suddenly became attentive again after being distant for months? That was because of something you told me. I thought about all the times Jason had surprised me with exactly what I needed, a weekend away when I mentioned to Megan I was feeling neglected, or bringing home my favorite takeout after I told her I was upset about a canceled date. What I had interpreted as occasional thoughtfulness had actually been calculated manipulation based on stolen private conversations. And the divorce? I asked. You gave recordings to his lawyer? Yes, she admitted. They knew what arguments you were planning to make, what evidence you were gathering, what settlement terms you would accept. No wonder they'd always seemed one step ahead. They literally were. I sat there, processing this new information, this deeper layer of betrayal I hadn't even known existed. All those years, I thought I knew what had happened. My husband and best friend had an affair. Painful, but straightforward. But this was different. This was methodical, calculated deceit that spanned our entire relationship. I should go, I finally said, standing up. Kate, Megan called as I turned to leave. I know you have no reason to believe anything I say, but Jason was the one who pushed for most of it. I'm not saying I wasn't responsible for my choices, I was. But he orchestrated it all. I paused. Why would he do that? Why go to such lengths? Control, she said simply. Jason needs to control everything and everyone around him. Including you, including me. It took me years of therapy to see it, but he was manipulating both of us the entire time. I walked out without responding, my mind spinning with everything I'd just learned. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about what Megan had told me. Was Jason really the mastermind she'd made him out to be? Or was she trying to shift blame away from herself? I couldn't trust either of their versions of reality anymore. After a week of sleepless nights, I called my lawyer. I explained what Megan had told me about the recordings and asked if there was any legal recourse. She was outraged on my behalf and explained that recording private conversations without consent is illegal in Massachusetts where we live. We could potentially file a lawsuit against both of them. "Do you have any proof these recordings existed?" she asked. "No," I admitted, "just Megan's confession." "Let me do some investigating," she said. "Don't contact either of them in the meantime." 2 days later, I received a call from my lawyer. "Kate, I think we might have something." I reached out to Jason's former divorce attorney with a strongly worded letter suggesting we had evidence of illegal recordings being used in your divorce proceedings. I was fishing, honestly, but his response was telling. He immediately asked for a meeting rather than denying it outright. We set up a meeting for the following week. In the conference room of my lawyer's office, I came face to face with Jason for the first time in over 2 years. He looked older, with new lines around his eyes and gray sprinkled through his dark hair. He was still handsome in that polished way that had initially attracted me, but now all I could see was the calculation behind his eyes. "Kate," he said, his voice soft. "You look well." I didn't respond, just waited for my lawyer to begin. "Mr. Daniels, we've asked for this meeting because we have reason to believe you and Ms. Bennett illegally recorded private conversations during your marriage to my client and used those recordings in your divorce proceedings," my lawyer stated firmly. Jason shot a look at his attorney before responding. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Ms. Bennett has already admitted to making these recordings at your request," my lawyer continued. "We're prepared to file criminal charges against both of you unless we can reach an agreement today." Jason's face hardened. "Megan told you that? She's always been unstable. You know that, Kate. Remember how she used to get after a couple of drinks? Saying whatever she thought people wanted to hear?" "Actually," I said, finding my voice, "what I remember is how she was always there when I needed to talk, always ready with her phone nearby, always eager to hear my most private thoughts and feelings. Now I understand why." His lawyer leaned over and whispered something in his ear. Jason's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "A full confession, in writing, from both of you. A new financial settlement that actually reflects what I'm entitled to, including half the value of the house. And a restraining order against both of you," I stated, having discussed these terms with my lawyer beforehand. "If these supposed recordings even existed, the statute of limitations," his lawyer began. "Has not expired," my lawyer interrupted. "And while we're at it, let's discuss the tax implications of the unreported income Mr. Daniels has been hiding in his Cayman Islands account." Jason's head snapped up. "What? How did you?" I almost smiled. He just confirmed something we had only suspected based on a comment Megan had made during our coffee shop conversation about Jason bragging about offshore investments. After 2 hours of tense negotiation, Jason agreed to all of our terms, including a significantly improved financial settlement. As we were wrapping up, he asked if he could speak to me alone for a moment. Against my better judgment, I agreed, though my lawyer insisted on waiting just outside the door. "Kate," Jason said once we were alone, "I need you to know that I did love you. In my own way." "Your own way involved systematic deception and emotional abuse," I replied. "That's not love, Jason. That's control." "Maybe," he conceded. "But it wasn't all an act. Not with you, and not with Megan either. I think I loved both of you, but I couldn't choose, and then it all got so complicated." "Save it," I cut him off. "I'm not interested in your rationalizations. I just want what's fair and for both of you to stay away from me." "Did Megan tell you we're not together anymore?" he asked. "That she broke things off permanently last year?" "She mentioned it," I said, not adding that I didn't care either way. "She said she couldn't be with someone who would do what we did to you," he continued. "Said she needed to work on herself, figure out why she was capable of hurting someone she cared about so deeply. Are you hoping this makes me feel sorry for you? Or for her? I asked. No. I just thought you should know that at least one of us has genuine remorse. He looked down at his hands. I've spent so many years manipulating situations and people that I don't even know what genuine emotions feel like anymore. For just a moment, I glimpsed the scared, insecure man beneath the polished exterior. Jason had always needed to be in control, to know everything, to manage everyone's perceptions of him. What a lonely way to live. I hope you get help, Jason, I said, meaning it. But I also hope I never see you again. As I left the conference room, I felt lighter than I had in years. Update, 6 months later. The new settlement agreement with Jason was finalized 3 months ago. I used part of the money to put a down payment on a small house in a neighborhood I love. For the first time in my adult life, I have a place that's entirely my own, decorated exactly how I want it, with no compromises. I've been seeing a new therapist who specializes in recovery from psychological abuse and gaslighting. She's been helping me recognize how Jason's manipulation affected my perception of reality and my ability to trust my own judgment. It's been painful work, but necessary. My lawyer advised me not to have any further contact with Megan, as anything she said to me could potentially be used in legal proceedings if we decided to pursue criminal charges. But last month, I received a package from her containing 3 thumb drives and a letter. These contain all the recordings I ever made of our conversations, she wrote. I've deleted all other copies. I'm sending these to you because they belong to you, and because destroying them without giving you the choice of what to do with them would be one more decision I made for you without your consent. I'm in a treatment program now for codependency and boundary issues. I don't expect forgiveness, nor do I deserve it. But I am truly sorry for every way I hurt you. I haven't listened to the recordings. I'm not sure I ever will. But having them gives me a sense of closure, of reclaiming pieces of myself that were taken without my knowledge. As for Jason, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he's been transferred to his company's London office. I hope the Atlantic Ocean is enough distance to finally feel free of his influence. I've started dating again, slowly, cautiously. I met someone through a book club a few months ago. He's kind and straightforward in a way that's refreshing after years of decoding Jason's subtle manipulations. When I told him a simplified version of my divorce story, his response was perfect. Anyone who could do that to someone they claim to love has something fundamentally broken inside them. Their actions say nothing about you and everything about them. It's still hard for me to fully trust, to believe that what I see is what I get. I catch myself analyzing casual comments for hidden meanings or ulterior motives. But each day gets a little easier. The hardest part has been rebuilding my capacity for friendship. Megan's betrayal cut deeper than Jason's in many ways. He was my husband, but she was my person, the friend I thought would be by my side through everything life threw at us. Learning that our entire friendship was built on a foundation of lies made me question every other relationship in my life. I've been working on this in therapy, learning to open myself up again while maintaining healthy boundaries. I've reconnected with some college friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage and have been making an effort to nurture these renewed connections. It's scary, but necessary. As my therapist reminds me, isolation only gives more power to the people who hurt us. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, remembering something I told Megan years ago, wondering if that particular conversation was recorded, if Jason listened to it, if they laughed together at my vulnerability. But those moments are becoming less frequent. If there's anything I've learned from this experience, it's that you can never truly know another person completely. We all have inner lives, secret thoughts, hidden motivations. Trust isn't about perfect certainty, it's about choosing to believe in someone's essential decency despite the inherent uncertainty of human connection. Jason and Megan chose deceit over decency for years. That was their choice, their moral failure, not mine. I choose to believe that most people aren't capable of such elaborate, long-term betrayal. I choose to believe that authentic connection is possible, even after experiencing its counterfeit. The other day, I was having coffee with a new friend, and I caught myself holding back, measuring my words carefully. Then I took a deep breath and shared something real, something vulnerable. It was a small step, but an important one. Because living in fear of betrayal is its own kind of prison. I'm not the same person I was before I discovered Jason and Megan's deception. I'm more cautious, more observant, but also more compassionate, both with others and with myself. I understand now how people can compartmentalize, how they can justify actions that hurt those they claim to love. That understanding doesn't excuse what they did, but it helps me make sense of something that once seemed incomprehensible. 3 weeks ago, I ran into one of Jason's friends at a restaurant, someone who had taken his side during the divorce. He seemed uncomfortable seeing me, but I surprised myself by engaging him in conversation. He eventually apologized for not being more supportive, admitting that Jason had told their friend group a very different version of events. He said, "You had emotionally abandoned the marriage," this friend told me. "That you were cold and distant for years, that he was desperately lonely." He made it sound like his relationship with Megan was the result of your neglect, not the cause of your marriage problems. I wasn't shocked by this revelation. It fit perfectly with Jason's need to control the narrative, to be seen as the good guy even when his actions were indefensible. What did surprise me was how little it bothered me. His lies no longer had the power to hurt me. "I hope you're doing well," I told this friend sincerely as we parted ways. "And I hope one day Jason finds whatever he's looking for." Last weekend, I drove out to the coast alone. I sat on the beach, watching the waves crash against the shore, and felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. 3 years ago, my life imploded in the most painful way imaginable. The two people I trusted most in the world betrayed me in a manner so calculated it still takes my breath away when I think about it too directly. But here I am, still standing. Still capable of joy, of connection, of hope. There's a resilience in me I never knew existed until it was tested by fire. I don't know what the future holds. I can't control whether the people in my life will choose honesty or deceit, loyalty or betrayal. All I can control is how I respond, how I rebuild, how I choose to live in the aftermath of betrayal. And I choose to live openly, bravely, with my heart still capable of trust despite its scars. Because the alternative, a life of isolation and suspicion, would be letting Jason and Megan win. And they've taken enough from me already. So here's to second chances, not for them, but for me. Here's to believing that what happened to me is the exception, not the rule. Here's to trusting again, loving again, befriending again, with eyes wide open, but with an open heart as well. Because that's the thing about betrayal, it can break you, or it can transform you. I choose transformation. I choose to see my experience not as a reason to close myself off from connection but as hard-won wisdom that makes meaningful connection possible in new ways. The worst thing my best friend ever did to me was pretend to be my friend for over a decade while systematically betraying my trust in the most intimate ways imaginable. But the best thing I've done for myself is refuse to let that betrayal define me or determine my capacity for authentic connection going forward. And that, ultimately, is how I win.